Who is the stupidest person you've met? Story 1. What is the fastest way the most popular girl in school messed up her life? As a high school student, I always wondered what it would be like to be the most popular girl in school. You know, the one who had it all, the perfect looks, the perfect grades, and the perfect boyfriend. But as I watched her over the years, I realized that being popular wasn't all it was cracked up to be. In fact, it seemed like the most popular girl in school was always teetering on the edge of disaster. It all started when she was a freshman. She came to our school from another state and immediately became the center of attention. She was beautiful, with long blonde hair, sparkling blue eyes, and a perfect smile. And she was smart too, always at the top of her class. But it wasn't long before things started to go wrong. The most popular girl in school became obsessed with maintaining her perfect image. She spent hours each day doing her hair and makeup, and even more time studying to make sure she got straight A's. She joined every club and sports team she could, all in an effort to be the best. At first, it seemed like her efforts were paying off. She was the captain of the cheerleading squad, the editor of the school newspaper, and the president of the honor society. But as time went on, she began to crack under the pressure. It started with her boyfriend. He was the star quarterback of the football team, and they had been dating since freshman year. But as the most popular girl in school became more obsessed with her image, she began to neglect him. She was always too busy with her other commitments to spend time with him, and he started to feel like he didn't matter to her anymore. One day, he had had enough. He broke up with her in the middle of the school hallway, and the most popular girl in school was devastated. She had never been dumped before, and she didn't know how to handle it. She started skipping school and staying home all day, crying and eating junk food. But that was just the beginning. As the most popular girl in school fell further into despair, she started to make some really bad decisions. She started hanging out with the wrong crowd, the kids who smoked and drank and partied all night. She started skipping class and getting into trouble with the school administration. And then, one day, she did something that would change her life forever. She stole a car. It was a stupid mistake, one that she would regret for the rest of her life. But at the time, she was so desperate for attention and so caught up in her own misery that she didn't care. She just wanted to feel something, anything. The police caught her a few hours later, and she was arrested and charged with grand theft auto. Her parents were devastated. They had always been so proud of their perfect daughter, and now she had ruined her life with one foolish mistake. The most popular girl in school was expelled from school and sent to a juvenile detention center. She spent the next few years there, learning how to cope with her emotions and her mistakes. She missed out on so much: prom, graduation, college. But eventually, she was released, and she went back to her hometown to try to start over. It wasn't easy. She had a criminal record, and everyone in town knew what she had done. But she was determined to make the best of her second chance. She got a job at a local restaurant and started taking classes at the community college. She volunteered at the local homeless shelter and the animal rescue center. She even started dating again, and this time she was careful to find someone who appreciated her for who she was, not just for her looks or popularity. Years went by, and the most popular girl in school had become a distant memory. She had changed so much since then, and she was grateful for the lessons she had learned the hard way. One day, she received an unexpected email from her high school reunion committee. They were planning a 10-year reunion and wanted her to come. At first, she was hesitant. Did she really want to go back to the place where she had messed up her life so badly? But after thinking about it for a while, she decided to go. She wanted to show everyone that she had changed, that she wasn't the same person she had been in high school. But as she walked through the door, she was greeted by old friends and classmates who welcomed her back with open arms. They were all surprised to see how much she had changed, and they were proud of her for overcoming her past. As the night went on, the most popular girl in school found herself laughing and talking with people she had never thought she would connect with. She realized that high school had been so focused on popularity and image, but now, 10 years later, everyone had grown up and moved on. At the end of the night, the most popular girl in school felt a sense of closure. She had come full circle, from the height of her popularity to the depths of her despair, and now to a place of peace and acceptance. As she walked out of the reunion hall and into the night, she knew that she had finally found the fastest way to mess up her life, by trying to be something she wasn't. But she had also found the fastest way to fix it, by embracing who she was and learning from her mistakes. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Story 2. My most freaked up moment. I've done a lot of messed up things in my life, but one moment in particular stands out as the most freaked up thing I've ever done. It was during my college years, when I was living in a small apartment with a few friends and experimenting with all sorts of drugs. One night, we decided to try something new: DMT. For those who don't know, DMT is a powerful psychedelic drug that can cause intense hallucinations and altered states of consciousness. We had heard about it from some friends and were curious to try it out for ourselves. We gathered in our living room, turned off all the lights, and lit some candles to set the mood. We each took a hit from the pipe and waited for the effects to kick in. At first, everything seemed normal. Colors were brighter, sounds were more vivid, and my body felt weightless. But then things started to get weird. I felt like I was being pulled out of my body and into another dimension. Shapes and patterns swirled around me, and I heard voices whispering in my ear. It was like nothing I had ever experienced before. And then I saw her, a woman with long, dark hair and piercing blue eyes. She was standing in front of me, beckoning me closer. I felt drawn to her, like she was the key to some great mystery. I stepped towards her, and suddenly she was all around me. Her hair flowed over me like water, and her eyes bore into mine. I felt like I was drowning in her gaze. And then we were kissing. It was like nothing I had ever felt before. Every inch of my body was alive with sensation. It was like we were merging together, becoming one being. But then something shifted. Her face twisted into a snarl, and she started to bite me, hard. I felt the pain, but it was mixed with pleasure. It was like I was addicted to the feeling of being hurt. And then I woke up. I was lying on the floor, covered in sweat and saliva. My friends were all staring at me, their eyes wide with shock. What the hell was that? One of them asked. I don't know, I said, but I want to do it again. We all laughed, but there was an uneasy feeling in the room. We had all experienced something intense and inexplicable, something that had left us feeling like we had touched the edges of madness. After that night, things started to change. I found myself thinking about the woman from my trip all the time. I would close my eyes and see her face, her hair, her eyes. I started to feel like she was real, like she was waiting for me somewhere just beyond the edge of reality. And then I saw her again. It was during another DMT trip, and she was there, waiting for me. This time, we didn't just kiss. We had sex. Wild, passionate, animalistic sex. I felt like I was losing my mind. I had never felt anything like this before, and I was addicted to it. I started using DMT more and more, hoping to see her again, hoping to feel that same intense connection. But things started to spiral out of control. I was using DMT every day, sometimes multiple times a day. I stopped going to class, stopped hanging out with my friends, stopped doing anything that didn't involve getting high. And then one day, I saw her outside of my DMT trips. I was walking down the street, and there she was, standing on the corner. I couldn't believe it. She was real. I approached her, and she smiled at me. Hello, she said, her voice like honey. Hi, I said, my heart pounding in my chest. I've seen you before, in my trips. Yes, she said, her smile widening. I've been waiting for you. We talked for a while, and I learned her name was Luna. She was a free spirit, traveling the country and living off the land. She didn't have a phone or a permanent address, but she seemed happy. We started seeing each other regularly, but it wasn't like any other relationship I had ever had. We would take DMT together, and then we would have sex. It was like we were addicted to each other, to the intensity of our connection. But then things started to get even more messed up. Luna started to talk about how we were meant to be together forever, how we were soulmates. She wanted us to run away together, to start a new life far away from everything we knew. I tried to talk her out of it, to explain that we couldn't just abandon our lives and our responsibilities. But she wouldn't listen. She was convinced that we were meant to be together and nothing else mattered. One day, I came home to find Luna packing up our apartment. She had sold everything we owned and was ready to leave. I tried to reason with her, but she wouldn't listen. She said that we were destined for something greater, that we were meant to explore the universe together. And then things got even worse. Luna started to talk about how we needed to sacrifice ourselves to the gods, how our love was so pure that it could transcend death. She wanted us to take DMT together and then jump off a cliff, to merge together in the afterlife. I was terrified. I knew that this was crazy, that we couldn't just throw our lives away like this. But Luna was so convinced, so sure of her beliefs, that I started to doubt my own sanity. In the end, I had to make a choice. I had to choose between my love for Luna and my own life. I decided to break things off with her, to try to start over and get clean from the drugs. It was the hardest thing I had ever done, but it was also the most important. I realized that I had been living in a delusion, that I had been chasing after something that wasn't real. Luna was just a hallucination, a product of my drug-addled mind. I got clean from the drugs, went back to school, and started to rebuild my life. It wasn't easy, but it was worth it. I realized that I had been on a dangerous path, and I was lucky to have gotten off before it was too late. Looking back, I can't believe how messed up that whole period of my life was. But I'm grateful for the lessons I learned, and for the fact that I'm still alive today. I know that I'll never forget my most freaked up moment, but I also know that I've grown stronger because of it. Let me know what you think about this in the comments. Story 3. The one time I totally messed up my business. It was the one time I totally messed up my business. The memory still haunts me, even though it happened several years ago. I had just started a small online store selling handmade jewelry, and things were going well. I was making enough money to cover my expenses and even put some aside for savings. I was proud of what I had accomplished. But then I made a huge mistake. I decided to expand my business and add a new product line, clothing. I had always been interested in fashion, and I thought it would be a great way to bring in more customers and increase my revenue. So, I invested all of my savings into purchasing inventory and designing a new website. At first, things seemed to be going well. I had a few sales, and I received some positive feedback from customers. But then the problem started. First, I realized that I had underestimated the amount of work that went into designing and producing clothing. It was a lot more complicated than making jewelry, and I found myself spending all of my time trying to keep up with orders. Second, I had overlooked the fact that clothing sizes are much more complicated than jewelry sizes. With jewelry, there are only a few sizes to worry about: small, medium, large, and extra large. But with clothing, there are dozens of different sizes and measurements to consider. I quickly realized that I had ordered the wrong sizes for many of my customers, and I had to deal with a lot of returns and exchanges. Finally, I made a critical mistake that nearly destroyed my business. I had been using a dropshipping supplier for my clothing inventory, which meant that they would handle the shipping and fulfillment of my orders. However, I soon discovered that the supplier was unreliable and often sent the wrong items to my customers. This led to a lot of angry customers and negative reviews, which severely damaged my reputation. It was a difficult time for me. I had poured everything I had into my business, and now it seemed like it was all going to fall apart. I felt like a failure, and I didn't know what to do next. But then I realized that I had to take responsibility for my mistakes and try to fix them. I reached out to my customers and apologized for the errors, offering refunds and exchanges to anyone who had been affected. I also cut ties with the dropshipping supplier and started sourcing my inventory from more reliable sources. It wasn't easy, but slowly my business started to recover. I learned from my mistakes and started to focus on what I was good at, making jewelry. I stopped trying to do everything myself and started outsourcing some of the more complicated tasks, like website design and inventory management. Over time, my business grew stronger and more successful than ever before. I gained a reputation for quality craftsmanship and excellent customer service, and I built a loyal following of customers who loved my products. Looking back on that difficult time, I realized that my biggest mistake was trying to do too much too soon. I was so eager to grow my business that I overlooked the risks and challenges that came with expanding into a new product line. But in the end, my failure taught me an important lesson, that sometimes it's better to focus on doing one thing really well than to try to do everything at once. Today, my business is thriving, and I'm grateful for the lessons I learned from that difficult experience. I know that I'll make mistakes in the future, but I'm confident that I'll be able to handle them with grace and resilience. After all, that's what being an entrepreneur is all about, taking risks, learning from failures, and always moving forward. What are your thoughts on this story? Story 4. That time when I totally messed up my marriage. I never thought that my life would take such a drastic turn. I was always a straight-A student, had a successful career, and a seemingly perfect marriage. But that all changed one day when I completely messed up my marriage. It all started with a job offer. I had been working for the same company for years and was ready for a change. I was approached by a headhunter for a job that seemed too good to be true. It was a higher position with a bigger salary and more opportunities for advancement. I was thrilled and immediately accepted the offer. However, this job came with a catch. It required me to move to a different state, which meant leaving my wife behind. We had talked about it and she was supportive, but I could tell that she was hesitant about the idea. We had been married for 5 years and had never been apart for more than a week, but I was determined to take the job and make it work. The first few months were tough. I was in a new city, working long hours, and missing my wife terribly. We talked on the phone every day, but it wasn't the same as being together. I started to feel lonely and isolated. That's when I met her. Her name was Emily and she was my coworker. She was smart, funny, and beautiful. We hit it off right away and soon became friends. We started hanging out after work, going to happy hours, and exploring the city together. It was innocent at first, but then things started to change. I started to have feelings for Emily. I knew it was wrong, but I couldn't help it. I was lonely and vulnerable, and she was there for me. We started to flirt with each other and it became more and more intense. One night, we went out for drinks and ended up kissing. It was a mistake, but it felt so right in the moment. We both knew it was wrong, but we couldn't stop ourselves. We started to see each other in secret, going on dates and spending time together whenever we could. Meanwhile, my wife was starting to notice that something was off. She could tell that I was distant and distracted. She tried to talk to me about it, but I always brushed her off. I didn't want her to know what was really going on. Then one day, my wife surprised me by showing up at my office. She had flown in to surprise me and spend the weekend together. I was thrilled to see her, but also terrified. I didn't know how to tell her about Emily or what I had done. We spent the weekend together, but things were different. There was an awkwardness between us that hadn't been there before. I could tell that my wife knew something was wrong, but she didn't say anything. On the last day of her visit, we went out to brunch. That's when she asked me about Emily. She had seen us together and knew that something was going on. I couldn't lie to her anymore. I told her the truth about what had happened and how I had messed up our marriage. She was devastated. She couldn't believe that I had cheated on her and lied to her. She packed her bags and left that day. I knew that I had lost her forever. Over the next few months, I tried to make it up to her. I went to therapy, apologized, and begged for her forgiveness. But it was too late. She had already moved on and filed for divorce. Looking back, I realize how foolish I was. I let my loneliness and insecurity get the best of me, and I hurt the person I loved the most. I lost my marriage and my best friend because of my own mistakes. I learned a hard lesson from that experience. I learned that communication is key in a relationship. I should have been honest with my wife from the beginning and shared my struggles with her. Instead, I kept everything bottled up inside and it led me down a path of destruction. I also realized that temptation can be powerful, but it's important to stay true to your values and commitments. It's easy to get caught up in the moment, but the consequences can be devastating. In the end, my divorce was a wake-up call. It forced me to take a hard look at my life and make some changes. I moved back to my hometown, reconnected with old friends, and started focusing on my personal growth and well-being. I also learned to appreciate the value of forgiveness. My ex-wife eventually forgave me, and we were able to maintain a cordial relationship. We both acknowledged our mistakes and accepted responsibility for our actions. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary for us to move on with our lives. Today, I'm happily remarried and have a beautiful family. I still think about my past mistakes, but I use them as a reminder to stay humble and grateful for what I have. I also use my experience to help others who may be going through similar struggles. In conclusion, messing up my marriage was one of the most difficult experiences of my life, but it taught me some valuable lessons. It showed me the importance of communication, staying true to my values, and the power of forgiveness. It also taught me to appreciate the love and relationships in my life and to never take them for granted. That is all for now. Who do you think messed up the most? When you subscribe, be sure to click the notification bell. Click here to watch another video.